Hi everyone, I'm Joel Chasnoff and welcome to a very special episode of FIDF Live. As you may know, it's been a very busy and challenging past year and a half for the soldiers of the IDF, helping to contain the corona pandemic, Operation Guardian of the Walls, plus many military operations that the rest of us just don't hear about. Well, today we have a real treat. A few weeks ago, we asked you, our supporters, to send in questions for IDF officers. And in today's episode, those officers are going to answer your questions. Let's meet our officer guests. Hi, guys.
Hi.
Hey.
Hey.
Why don't you just briefly introduce yourselves, say your name and where you serve. We'll start with you.
I'm Second Lieutenant Abigail Bell. I'm from Odine, and I am a platoon commander in the Search and Rescue Brigade of the Home Front Command.
I'm Lieutenant Nettie Jaworowski, 23 years old, and I'm an Iron Dome Battery Deputy Commander, stationed down south.
I'm Captain Erez Hochdorf from the Israeli Navy. I'm a captain of a fast patrol boat on Ashdod base, responsible for the Gaza Strip.
I want to tell you how excited I am to have you with us, and I know our viewers really are as well. They love the chance to get to know you a little more intimately than they just normally see in our shows. So this is really great, and many people sent in questions. How it works is we have the questions right here. They actually filmed themselves asking the questions. Our first question is for all of you, so I will hand it to you since you're in the middle, and you can watch it together.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Marshall from Westchester County, New York. My question is, IDF soldiers usually enlist right after high school graduation. How does it feel to be responsible for Israel's security at such a young age? Thank you for all your work. It's great to be here.
Well, I can say, Joel and everybody watching, that first of all, the ability to be called someone who's responsible for the security and safety of the entire country is a huge honor. That's at first. And I can also say that the moment you walk past those gates, the first time when you go on base, you just understand the significance and you understand the importance of what you're about to do. And going through the extensive and intense and exciting and sometimes even very difficult training, you don't feel your age. It's not an issue. It just doesn't relate to the things we do.
Abigail, you have sort of an interesting story as a child of immigrants from the U.S. How does this question relate to you?
My family in the States, they don't really understand the Israeli Army the way they understand the U.S. Army. And they also have asked me what it's like to be so young and so responsible for such big things. And I tell them that that's what we're used to in Israel. We get this responsibility so early on in life that we just roll with it, and it happens to work.
So we've talked a little bit about, in general, what it's like to go into the military at a young age. This next question is specifically for Captain Erez. It comes to us from a little girl in the U.S. who I heard just had a birthday. So happy birthday, and thank you for asking the question.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Abigail. My question is, what is it like to be at sea? Do you ever get seasick?
Yes, we do get seasick a lot of times and we get tired. But it's part of the atmosphere on the boat. The beauty of the Navy that each boat alone is like a small unit of a family. And even when people, I'm sorry for the hard language, throw up and feel sick, we make fun of it and we go on. We just move on forward, we help them, and we make the best out of it.
I would imagine it would be difficult, but also having that sense of brotherhood out there would make it easier.
Absolutely.
We're going to go from sea to the air, and this question is for you, Nettie. It comes to us again from the U.S.
Hi, my name is Tegan. I'm from Pennsylvania. And my question is, what does the Iron Dome look like from behind the scenes?
So that's actually a great question. I mean, everyone knows what Iron Dome is, and it's hard to miss what's going on in the sky. But at the end of the day, what happens behind the scenes, not lots of people know. And I feel the essence of Iron Dome at the end of the day is the people, the men and women that work behind it. I mean, without the combat soldiers and the technicians working 24/7, 365 days a year, the immense successes that we see from day to day just wouldn't be what they are.
people have wondered if it's automatic, but what you're saying is it's not automatic.
No, not at all. We sit day and night, weekend and through the weekdays, and we're there all the time protecting and making sure that nothing infiltrates us guys.
I'm not surprised we had questions about Iron Dome. It was so crucial this past year, and those who follow the news in the U.S. knew how important it was as well, so thank you for answering that. Now, Second Lieutenant Avigail, a question relating to the Home Front Command.
Hi, my name is Dane. I'm from Texas, and I have a question for the Home Front Command. What exactly is the Home Front? What kind of missions do they do?
My family's from Texas. Well, that's a good question. In emergencies, basically when buildings collapse, when earthquakes happen, those kinds of things, we go, we search, and we rescue people that are stuck in the rubble. And on certain cases, we also fly out to different countries around the world that need our help, like in Mexico or Haiti. Wherever we need, that's where we go.
And what's unique about you guys is you deal both with civilians and more military operations, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. We're basically the face of the Army to the civilians back there. That's why we're called the Home Front. And it gives us an extra sense of purpose, I feel, when we actually meet the people and we get to show them that we're here for them.
And during the corona pandemic, you had a lot of face-to-face contact.
During the coronavirus pandemic, we had lots of different kinds of missions. I went out to give people at home who needed help. We went to give them boxes of food. It was for Pesach time. I was for a week at the airport when people were getting sent to the hotels. But it was quite an experience.
So we've heard a little bit about each of your separate jobs, but do you ever interact with each other? To what extent is Navy ever working with Air Force or Home Front, and likewise for Air Force?
Anyone knows, especially people who like sports, that there's no defense without a good offense. And once you have Iron Dome standing beside the other forces, if it's in the ground or in the sky or in sea, we can actually do what we need as an army as a whole. Once we work as an army together and we can protect each other, that really allows us to extend our operations.
Are you ever impressed by what other branches are doing when you get to work with them? It must be a whole new world.
Yeah, well, I think the beauty of IDF in general is how interconnected all of the different branches are. I mean, a strong Navy, a strong Army, and a strong Air Force, and obviously a strong home base and infrastructure for the entire organization. Being at sea, you get the beautiful views all the time. You see the sunset, the sunrise, but even at, you can call it darker times, war times, when it's needed. When you look from sea towards land, you can actually see at night the Iron Dome working and the Army guys protecting the entire section. And it's beautiful, and I mean, I've experienced personally, probably, you can say a lot of times, where the collaboration between the Navy, the Army, and the Air Force produced exceptional operational success.
So speaking of cooperation within the forces, that actually relates to our next question, which I will hand to you, Captain Aris.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Rob Rickle, and I'm from Boynton Beach, Florida. I have a couple of questions for you. During your time as an IDF officer, did you experience cooperation with any branches of the U.S. military?
Well, that's a good question. Thank you, Rob. Throughout my experience in the Navy, the 5.5 years I've had, we've worked a lot with the U.S. Navy, and I've had a lot of great experiences with them, both operational and in trainings. But I think one experience in specific left the biggest mark on me, and that was during a training as naval officers in the Naval Academy here in Israel. We study a BA in political science and international relations at the Haifa University. And I got the privilege and the honor to get sent up to Washington, D.C. and take part of a student exchange program with the United States Naval Academy. And I think that other than it being an amazing experience, a lot of fun traveling throughout the U.S. and also representing Israel, which was amazing for me personally, I think that despite the differences between the navies, obviously in size and mission and personnel, what I enjoyed seeing the most is the fact that the core values of the US Navy and the core values of the Israeli Navy align.
All three of you are officers in the IDF, which is not mandatory, it's voluntary. Why did you each choose to become an officer? And we'll start with you, Lieutenant Netti.
My grandparents were both the Holocaust survivors. And at my age, at the age of 23, both my grandparents were prisoners in Auschwitz-Birkenau. The thought that I, at the age of 23, thinking and taking into account what my grandparents experienced and where they were, am now standing as an Israeli officer in the Israeli Air Force protecting my sovereign land of Israel is really something that they would never imagine. I try and think what they would think if someone told them 70 years ago that this is what's happening in the country.
The larger narrative makes it so meaningful. Second Lieutenant Avigail, how about your choice?
As Israeli citizens, we're given the beautiful opportunity to become selfless and for 2 years and 8 months put our lives on hold and give back to our country and help our defense system. And I think that's an opportunity that I can't give up on.
And I love that you said opportunity to give to the country, not obligation, but a chance for you to do as well. Captain Erez, officerhood?
What drives me most is being a commander of soldiers, being able to be part of the process of shaping the future of Israel.
Following up on the question about why you became officers, we have a question from an Instagram follower who goes by Time Traveler 3. The question is, what does it take to become an officer in the IDF? So Avigail, we'll start with you.
I think an officer has to be mainly selfless and he has to be able to admit when he's wrong. Open-minded about that.
I think at the end of the day, there's a certain amount of core values that you need to have, thinking always at the mission and the people behind it. And that's what leads you from day and night,
I think being able to take care of the men and women under your command, that's the biggest thing. Because at the end of the day, they're someone's kids, and they're our country's civilians, and that's the biggest responsibility.
And here is our next question. Lieutenant Netti, I will hand it to you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sharon Mishkin from Boston. I'm chair of the FIDF New England Board. First, I want to start with thanking all the soldiers in the IDF for putting themselves at risk, for protecting Israel. Reality is we need a safe and strong Israel to protect the Jews all over the world. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts. I actually had a question. I was wondering if you can share with us your experiences during the Guardian of the Wall.
So, firstly, thank you for your kind words, Sharon. Guardian of the Walls was an operation I've never experienced something similar to that. 12 days where we sustained constant fire from the Gaza Strip, day and night, not only the troops, but the civilians. I mean, the responsibility that I felt on my shoulders to protect children, women, the troops also in the Gaza Strip was immense. Your chance has finally come to do your job and do it best, and there's no other option in your head,
Captain Erez, what was Guardian of the Walls like for you?
Well, obviously it was very complex and intense. But one experience I remember in particular is probably the first time we went out there towards the Gaza Strip during the operation. It was nighttime. It was me and my guys on our way to the strip, leaving the port. And I remember looking at my guys, and there were 2 guys from Ashdod, one from Ashkelon, one from Sderot, and another one from the outskirts of Gaza in a kibbutz.
These are geographically right near where the missiles are falling.
And we go out to see, and we don't really know what's happening outside. And we look towards Gaza Strip at night, and we just see fireballs, fireballs, fireballs. And for me and for my guys, seeing the meaning of our presence here, and our presence on the border, and all the hard work, the training, the maintenance, everything, I think that was the most significant moment for me, because you see it with your eyes.
What does that mean to you, that phrase, Army of the People, Captain Erez?
I think the phrase is beautifully portrayed in the Navy. Because as I said, each boat is a family. And at the end of the day, it's just you and another 12 to 14, 15 soldiers, 3 days at a time with no phone, no social media, no connection to the outside world at all. And you're basically stuck with one another, which is a tricky dynamic, but a very interesting and fascinating one.
So all 3 of you are officers, but at one point you had commanders above you, and you probably have commanders above you still. And that is actually, that relates to our next question. So Second Lieutenant Avigail.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Denise and Larry from New Jersey in the USA. First off, I'd just like to thank you all for your service. It is so critically important and so very much appreciated. So thank you all so very much.
Yes.
Our question is for the officers, and that is, what is the absolute best piece of advice you've ever gotten from a commander?
I've had plenty of great commanders. I've been blessed with that. And in officer school, we had this commander who taught us how to make decisions. Part of being an officer is being able to make really tough decisions. And he told us that when we're faced with a decision like this, we need to weigh cost against benefit. See basically which side overpowers the other, and through that, make our decisions. And it's helped me a lot in my service as a commander and an officer.
Lieutenant Netti, any advice that you remember receiving from a commander over your service?
Yeah, I mean, my answer is just one word: listen. You know, you come to the Army so young, you think you know everything, but really you know nothing. And I think just if you listen to the people, your peers, your commanders, your soldiers, there's so much to learn from your soldiers, feedback that you receive on how you are and the situations that you're in. I feel like if you just listen to the people around you, you'll get so far.
That actually relates to the next question, which I'm going to hand off to Captain Ayres. Perfect segue.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Irma. And I'm Irving. And we live in New York, and we have a question to ask you. The question is, what have you learned from being a commander? What have you learned from your soldiers that helps you to carry out your job? We were in the Army. We volunteered for the Army in the 80s, and it was in the Mid-Dot Beam, and we enjoyed it. It was the best times of our lives, and we salute you for doing the service of the country and for the people of Israel.
So again, turning the question sort of the other way, what as an officer have you learned from the soldiers under your command?
Listening is crucial, and I think that probably after seeing 60 or 70 soldiers under my command and hearing their stories and revealing stuff as we go along together down the path of serving together in the Navy, you realize, and what I've learned from them is the need and the essence of empathy in commanding and being able to stand in someone else's shoes. Just think of it from his perspective. And I think that's the biggest thing they taught me.
Second Lieutenant Abigail, how about you? Have you learned anything from the soldiers underneath your command?
I learn from them every day, and in relation to what Ayres said, I think that what we get from working with people is that we learn to put ourselves in their position so we can help them best. And the advantage that we have in the Israeli Army that actually not many armies have is that we were all once grunt workers. We came from nothing and we work our way up the ranks, and that's what makes it easier for us to really put ourselves in their position, listen, and be able to know what's best for them.
Lieutenant Netti, how about you?
So I actually have an interesting story. I mean, a few months ago we had some operational issue that we were trying to deal with, and we just couldn't get our heads around it. We found ourselves in a rut, and I left some briefing with a few of the commanders in the unit, and we just couldn't get our heads around it. And I was telling one of my soldiers the issue, and he just came up with this idea. He said, "Hey, why don't we do so and so?" And that just made me think, you know, sometimes we're so set in our ways and we have such specific ideas how to do things. And you know, sometimes the people at the end, at the bottom, and our soldiers, they see things in a different light, and they can actually give the answer. And I think just to always, you know, look at your soldiers and say, "Hey, what do you think? Like, what do you have an idea to give me?" And I feel like that's always such a good idea and such a good way to work.
We're coming toward the end, but one question I want to pose to all of you is just about the support. We've had people from the US sending in questions, filming themselves because they want to sort of meet you. How does it make you feel to know that there are people out there thinking about you, supporting the IDF? Lieutenant Netti, we'll start with you.
So, you know, it really just warms my heart. I mean, the overwhelming support we receive, especially in times of escalation, but even in routine days, from civilians in Israel and abroad, really just every time gets me. In Guardian of the Walls, we actually received a lot of aid and support from FIDF. If it's rested seating areas that we got, and it really just allows us in such hard times and such times of strain to kind of just like lay back and be able to enjoy ourselves. And I feel like the thought that someone is caring about me and someone appreciates what I do is really just what keeps you going.
Second Lieutenant Abigail, you've mentioned you have family in the U.S., so what does this question mean to you, the idea of support?
It just feels good to know that someone has your back other than your country. Obviously, it's amazing and it's wonderful to have your country stand behind you, but it's not that obvious that someone other than them supports you as well. And like Neti says, it really just warms your heart to know that there are people out there rooting for you.
Probably as important as being on the ground or at sea facing the enemy is being somewhere else and explaining what it is we do here. Because the scenery and the situation is so complex and so difficult to explain if you haven't lived here and experienced it. And I think that an organization like FIDF, speaking objectively and in support of IDF and Israel in general, is crucial. And I appreciate it.
What strikes me is how seriously each of you take the idea of leadership, that it's not just about being in power, but it really is about the people. And I think ultimately that's what makes the IDF a strong and a great organization, is that it is about people and the army of the people. So thank you so much for your leadership and for caring so much and for protecting the state of Israel and for taking the time to answer the questions that FIDF supporters sent in from the U.S.